There should be some governance on algorithms. Facebook, YouTube, etc. have a lot to answer for. Their monetary model is creating mental illness. They should have some governance. They should. If someone has been led by an algorithm 4 videos in, the algorithm should shut off. And they should bring a note and say, our advertising algorithm has taken you 4 videos into this line of thought. We are taking you back to a home screen that will randomly generate content for you to look at. This is what should happen. This would be a fair and just way of generating advertising revenue. It would be regulated. It would be honest. It would say, we could potentially be leading you into a biased set of information. We're cutting it off now, taking you back to a random home screen where it starts fresh. Hey family, Social Dilemma. It's a Netflix documentary at the moment that many people are talking about, and I have spoken about this problem for a very long time. Now, I made a video saying the greatest deception of our time about 2 months ago, and basically that video was saying that what Social Dilemma is speaking about is the reality of the greatest deception and problem of our time. Many people oppose that and they say, no, what about this, what about that? And they just don't think deep enough and realize that you can't control a nation. You can't enslave a nation with fear. You can't bring about new legislation from fear. You can't create wars without that technology. That technology is so comfortable in our hands that we just step over it. We don't realize, we don't investigate the impact of the technology on us individually in our family homes. So if you haven't seen Social Dilemma, it's many persons who helped create Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, things like this, and them speaking out about how they have grave concerns about the way this is engineering the outcome for humanity, the behavior of humanity. And I fully get behind what they are saying, and it's a huge issue. You know, at the present moment, one of the greatest ones I see are in spiritual, conspiratorial aspects of humanity. Many persons who are spiritually minded have just become massive conspiracy theorists. Now, again, people will be emotionally uncontrolled and respond and say, it's not a theory. I had this before, someone saying that the word conspiracy theory was created in the 70s by, it wasn't, and I've read literature dating way before 1970 where conspiracy theory was part of the human language because it's been around for a long time. It's not a creation or an invention from the 70s, but someone got so emotionally involved because they identify as a conspiracy theorist. And that's not a derogatory term by me, it's not. But what I'm getting at is that inside these pockets of humanity, especially in conspiracy side, people don't know what to believe as truth once they are in there. Once you're in a space where you're disbelieving things, you don't know what to believe anymore. And if someone was to take a video of your life, your whole life, and just make a whole video non-stop of all the time that you spend looking at a screen, and play that back to you at the end of your life, but blank out all the information on the screen, you would get a shock at how wasteful it was. Because at the end of the day, you were playing a role as a product. You were playing the role of generating advertising income for companies online. And it's very hard for people. People struggle because we are emotionally unstable often with being told these things, but it comes from a place of love, not a place of insult, and it's true. It's absolutely true, and I know because I used to do it myself. Now, if someone played that video back to you at the end of your life with all the information blanked, you would see it. You would see it. Now, people will say, but I am sharing information to get the truth out. But the reality is that the persons that we are mostly in that sector of society sharing with are persons who are already doing it. And in doing that, there's no physical change in reality off the back of those actions. And thus, it becomes a very dangerous place to spend your life. Because when you're at a screen and you have a physical manifestation in reality to say, that's what my screen time did in the world, it's a very different story. But many persons have zero physical manifestations in reality for their time spent on a screen these days. And we can start to change that by altering the way we behave. We can say, yes, I'm going to do that. Yes, I'm going to look at this information, but I'm going to take responsibility to create something in the physical world off the back of what I find. But people do not. And the reason people do not is they are physically addicted to remaining at the screen and don't admit that that's the case. They are physically addicted. It feels better to just sit at the screen and listen to this stuff than to come away and take your time and build something which is a bit dull and boring compared to the screen stimulating you with all this adrenaline. It's pretty dull to go and sit and write stuff out and type stuff out and plan this and plan that and communicate with this person and communicate with that person and wait to see a result that's going to not manifest for quite some time. To the body that's programmed into the screen, it's very boring. And that's a huge problem because realistically, when I was young, computers used to be a break from reality. Today, you can do a little exercise with yourself. When I was very young, we had a PC and we had Encarta Encyclopedia, showing my age for some. This is a disc with an encyclopedia with sounds and video, and I would go through it and I would read it and learn stuff, and it was a lot of fun. But it was a break from reality. As I got older, I would get a games console and I would play that console for hours. And I would go and stand in the garden in a cold night, and I remember going, and that was at the point, unbeknown to me, that reality was becoming a break from the computer. And that is a reality for many, many people in our world today. Ask yourself, when was the last time you were on the computer so much that you went and stood outside and you can then realize when the natural world is becoming the less dominant reality for you, which means that your dominant reality is not the real one. And what is a computer screen? It's light. God is light, but this is man-made, false light, and thus it's a false God. And thus, if you're the sort of person who spends a lot of time on the computer and then has to go outside for a walk and be like, whew, because you're releasing the tension of that false reality, then you are in that state. You are now at the point where computers are not a break from reality. Reality is a break from the computer. And this is a very, again, lethal place for us. Hey guys, call this a commercial break if you will. This week Feather's Tale has taken in a young mother who has mental health problems and her newborn baby. This young mother was in the psychiatric ward and the baby was moved from institution to institution, but there were no options to keep them together. Together is where they should be, and together is what Feather's Tale has set about trying to ensure that we can do, is keep mother and child together wherever possible. Because for all it's much harder work to do that, it's the responsibility of any organisation to keep mother and child together where possible. Thus, to do that, we have an extra property, and that property has no beds, it has no electricity, it has no mattresses, it has nothing, but the property's there. And thus, we are doing a fundraiser to be able to deck out this property to allow more mothers like this to move in, so as they too can live together with their children instead of being separated, when they should have every opportunity and all of the support to stay with their child, as every mother who loves her child really needs to be doing. There's a fundraiser below for that. We first of all need the solar power more than anything, and then we need to get beds and mattresses. And then we have a beautiful property with capacity for 10 mothers and their children, all of which who are struggling, be it with mental health issues or be they in need of palliative care, etc. That's what this is for. Thanks guys. Bye. So what's the solution to all of this? Because I don't want to do a synopsis of a social dilemma. I've covered this over and over as well. But what's the solution? Well, we have to change, I feel, the education system first and foremost. We have to stop being comfortable with technology that dominates our own lives and our children's lives. Our children should not have addictive devices if we don't even acknowledge our own addiction to them. This is a dangerous place. On top of that, we have to start educating our children from a young age on how the world is targeting their body as a product. We have junk food targeting the stimulus centres of their body, trying to get them to buy the junk food, and the end product is them feeling some rush from it. We have algorithms trying to generate advertising income, trying to make us sit at that screen and watch the next video, watch the next video. They are trying to program the adrenaline centres, the nervous system and the mind of you, which is very vulnerable, to keep doing that. We need to teach our children that this is an onslaught, this is a war against their consciousness, against their body, and that they have to have tools to do that. But most adults don't even admit it. Most adults don't even acknowledge it, and thus how can we? And so from a young age we should teach children emotional control so they understand what it is to be emotionally centered. You see these people on the streets protesting, screaming, shouting, breaking windows. They need governing. They're animals. They're primitive animals. You can't have a primitive animal in charge of governing a nation. They need governance. They need leadership until someone teaches them not to be an animal. Because the best thing for our species is the progression of our species, and the animal nature, the emotional responsive nature is not it's not going to do that. You can't do that. You can't progress as a species when you're behaving on impulse, especially when others who have dominated impulse are now generating products to get profit from you, to get power from you, that are controlling the impulse that you're not aware is a part of your nature you don't have to obey. And thus we have to teach our kids how to deal with emotion from a young age. We have to teach them how to deal with the fact that the body is going to be attacked by these media outlets, etc., to get its viewership and so on. And that is even a part of reality, because schools don't teach that that's a part of reality, and they have to by now. They must. But many governing bodies are reluctant to do this, because then you lose the very thing that is allowing persons to govern. You know, the only reason that we have certain presidential leaderships and certain government leaderships, etc., is the TV and the media. This is why we have it, and thus it's very hard then to teach your citizens how to be the dominant force over that and not the vulnerable force under that technology. When we start looking at that side of things and we start being really mature with ourselves and admitting it, many persons will defend to the death that it's not a problem. They'll say that there are far bigger problems in the world because we have a pandemic that has many dubious factors to it. We have things like 9/11, All of these things relied solely on persons seeing them on media outlet. They rely on persons using the technology where it's being pumped into them. If we don't break the dependence on that technology, if we don't create informed, strong human beings who can say, hang on a minute, I'm starting to feel a little bit addicted to this, let me go away and work out how I can stabilize my life so this technology can't own me and this corporation can't profit from making me watch the next video or the next video. Unless we get to a point where we are conscious and aware enough as our children grow older and become adults where we can do that, then whoever does do that will always have control over those who are not taught it. And that is how we get out of this. That is how we end this problem. Because it's true, we are heading towards something that looks a bit like civil war at the moment. You can see it. And many people are glorifying nonsense. They glorify primitive behaviour, they glorify violence, they glorify emotional outbursts, and who does it help? Who does it benefit? Absolutely nobody. Because nobody is able to govern a nation like that. We need to have more stable, secure, emotionally stable, physically in the body, non-reactant leaders in leadership. We have to have that. You can't have people addicted to television, addicted to phones, who are in control of things. Their leadership has to come from somewhere sovereign, has to come from a place of faith. The Bible says very clearly, those who dwell in the Spirit have no spirit of fear. And thus, if you're living in fear of the world events around you, then you're living in a different spirit. And unsurprisingly, because most of your time is not spent in God's light, it's spent in the false light. And the false light is a false God. And thus, if we want to come from a state of sovereign, organic soul connectivity, sovereign organic soul leaders, we have to have leaders who can have that dominant ability over the top of the technology and know that this technology is a tool. And if this technology is calling them, watch me, then they are the sort of person who says no, not the sort of person who whips the phone out and looks. Because the person who whips the phone out and looks is not fully physically developed in a sovereign state. And that is the solution to the social dilemma. And again, it starts with individuals. It's no good saying, well, our leaders should learn how to do that. It's no good saying, I can rule the place better than our leaders. It's no good saying, look at these, and I always give this great example. You get many working class men who say, these people, they look at them, they're disgusting. They do this, they do that. And I say, yeah, but at the working class, most men and women, many women, are addicted to naked people on a screen. If you're a billionaire, what makes you think you won't be addicted to the real thing? And it's exactly that is the problem. We can't keep saying that the leaders need to change unless we change at the bottom level as individuals. And as always, if you are online trying to change the world by sharing the conspiracies, etc., and not doing the self-work, not finding a way to not be afraid, not finding a way to have dominance over the technology, to come to that technology not as a slave to it, but as a user of it, as a tool, to say, I am going to use you today to do this. If you are not doing that work, then you should stop what you are doing, go away and evaluate your plan as a human being to find that strength over your emotions and over the impulses that we are fed in our hormonal system, our stimulatory system, and be able to say over the top of there, I feel like doing this mindless entertainment, I feel like doing this, I feel like watching that next video, I feel like doing this, that every time a voice, a sovereign voice should say, is that what I need to do right now to be the best version of myself and to bring the best version of me and the best positive impact I can to this planet and my family and my loved ones? And if that voice comes and asks that question, then you are heading towards the sovereign. But if that voice never steps in and you just click, you've got so much work to do. And it's important we do it. Because you can't manipulate with propaganda if people have dominance over the technology that's doing it to them. Lastly, there should be some governance on algorithms. Facebook, YouTube, etc. have a lot to answer for. Their monetary model is creating mental illness. They should have some governance. They should. If someone has been led by an algorithm 4 videos in, the algorithm should shut off. And they should bring a note and say, our advertising algorithm has taken you 4 videos into this line of thought. We are taking you back to a home screen that will randomly generate content for you to look at. This is what should happen. This would be a fair and just way of generating advertising revenue. It would be regulated. It would be honest. It would say, we could potentially be leading you into a biased set of information. We're cutting it off now, taking you back to a random home screen where it starts fresh. Let's see what the future holds. God bless, guys. Stay vigilant. Bye.